What's going on, WrestleTalk friends and fans? I'm Tempest from WrestleTalk.com, and we are here today to bring you our reviews of Day 3 and 4 of the G1 Climax. The G1 Climax is in full swing, and I'm very pleased to be joined by our good friend of the channel and WrestleTalk.com writer, Sonal Lad. Sonal, why don't you introduce yourselves and tell us why we should know you?
So my name is Sonal, and I'm actually in the long scheme of things quite a new wrestling fan, about 4 or 5 years. But yeah, I am obsessed with all things, especially Japanese wrestling. I have a YouTube channel, I write a blog. So yeah.
Excellent. Well, I have had to do this podcast already with a couple of people that don't know as much about New Japan Pro Wrestling, and my heart goes out to Andy Datson and to Louis Dangoor. I truly appreciate them joining me, and I'm sure they will again. But I'm very pleased to be joined by someone that knows a little bit more about it, and we can kind of go back and forth. So we're going to go through each of the block matches in the third and fourth shows in this tournament, and we're of course going to be reading out any super chats that we get and trying to interact with the chat as much as possible. So make sure that you tell us what you think of these matches as well. If you're, of course, not subscribed to Wrestle2, I don't know why you wouldn't be if you're here watching this, but make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring that bell. With that being said, let's get underway. And I think Day 3 started off with a really, really great match. Normally you see in New Japan, they try and build to the biggest matches. They put the least important one, the one that might not be the best, earlier in the card. But this time they started with Jeff Cobb and Shingo Takagi, and I thought this match was just great.
It was one of, when I was looking through the cards to start with, the blocks, it was one of the matches that really stood out to me. I felt like I was like, the possibilities from this match are absolutely endless. Like, there was nothing that didn't excite me about it, and it absolutely paid off in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was really interesting. Obviously, Shingo Takagi is one of my favorite wrestlers in the entire world. Just absolutely phenomenal. I can't say enough good things about him. And I really do like Jeff Cobb as well. But you look at a match like this, and they just kind of size each other up very well. It's that same sort of feeling that I get when I watch a Tomohiro Ishii versus Minoru Suzuki match, where it's two really tough guys fighting to see who is going to come out on top. And it's different. It's a different aspect than a lot of other matches.
And I think on top of that, you said with the Suzuki and Ishii, but I think the difference here is the agility and speed. So obviously Shingo was a junior heavyweight, but Jeff Cobb, the stuff he does for a man that size, it shouldn't happen. So when you've got two guys in the ring who are not only really strong, but really fast and athletic, it's almost like you can't go wrong with a matchup like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. My comparison between the two is more so just Jeff Cobb is very believable, and he's very big and he's very strong, and Shingo Takagi is very much the same way. And I compare that kind of a match with the Ishii and Suzuki match. While they're completely different in how they're actually wrestled, you still get the feeling that these are two really tough guys, and you go into it thinking, I don't know who's going to win, but you want to know who's going to win. And it kind of takes me back to that old feeling of pro wrestling that way.
And it's almost like you don't, I know that's not the point of wrestling, but you almost don't really care who's going to win because you know you're going to get an amazing match anyway. And if your favorite wins, it's a bonus. But if they don't, it's like, the other person will have fought and deserved the win.
Yeah. And for this match in particular, I keep finding Shingo's matches very interesting since joining the heavyweight division last year, because as a junior, he was the powerhouse of the whole division, and they made that very clear. In the best of the Super Juniors last year, he ran through everyone, went undefeated, and even in the final, it was his strength against Will Ospreay's speed. And you had that story going for a long period of time, but since joining the heavyweight division, he still hasn't found that same success. And it seems in matches, especially like this, when he's facing someone who's a little bit larger like Jeff Cobb, who's a little bit stronger like Jeff Cobb, that his strength has really become a huge facet of this story, where all of a sudden he's not the powerhouse of this division and he needs to find other ways to win. And so far, he hasn't been able to do that in this tournament.
And I think when you're saying that, he's not actually found, it's true, because if you think about it, yes, he got his never title reign. That was an amazing reign. The two people that he beat in his defenses were junior heavyweights in Sho and Desperado. Yeah, as soon as he goes up against a proper heavyweight in Suzuki, he's unable to do it. I don't know if that's the right thing, if they want to keep building him as such a good athlete, but I kind of like it because maybe if they'd have just had him go through every heavyweight, I sort of think we're not going to see any growth from Shingo because he was a junior for so long. And people need to remember how different it is. Like, some people would just say, oh, I was a junior, now I'm a heavyweight. They need to realize it's a whole different ball game.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it just makes it that much more sport based because if you look at like, if you have a boxer or a MMA fighter who goes up a weight class, it's going to be difficult in order to continue to have that same sustained success. You know, especially if you're looking at this is a very big jump from a junior heavyweight to a heavyweight. And just the level of competition is so much different and the style is so much different. So that, to me, I really like the story of him trying to find his groove because I love Shingo. I think he's going to be a main event star, you know, down the road for sure. But I really like how they've handled this so far. And of course, Cobb did get the win in this match with the Tour of the Islands. We've got a few people chiming into the chat. It's very good to see you all. I'm seeing some familiar faces here, of course. Shardula Shankar says, another great day for New Japan Pro Wrestling coverage. Very much appreciate that. AH says, what is your favorite moment to happen in New Japan during your time as a fan? What is your least favorite moment? I'll let you start.
Okay. So this is, I think, my favorite moment. It's almost like you have to go through back in your mind. I think it was Roppongi 3K winning. I know it's a weird one. Roppongi 3K winning at Wrestle Kingdom this year because I'm a massive Roppongi 3K fan, and for me, they always get the win, but it's never sustained enough. So they've won obviously so many Super Junior tag leagues, but then they always lose the titles like that. And I think by managing to beat two heels like in El Fantasmo and Ishimori, they proved that they do belong, that they are a good team, they're a smart team, and that they deserve all of the accolades that they've had over the past few years.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I like Roppongi 3K a whole lot as well. If I had to pick a favorite moment, I mean, it's so tough because there's just been so many really great moments. Obviously, you can go with like Omega's championship win just because the build to everything has just been, you know, incredible. And you take that, you know, in a bunch of different ways as well. You know, the Golden Lovers getting back together was a very emotional moment. So maybe something like that. I don't know if I can nail it down to one in particular moment, but those are both very good. And I don't know that I really have a least favorite moment. Nothing really sticks out.
I mean, mine would be least favorite is in the sense like I didn't like it, but I've always been a massive Jay White fan. Yeah, and I was always a massive fan of Chaos. So for me, it was really hard when he turned on Chaos with Gator. Like, it was an amazing moment, but as a Chaos fan, it was kind of hard for me.
Yeah. No, for sure. Let me see what else we've got here. We've got other people chiming in saying, you know, True Heel Heat Wrestling says, love the New Japan Pro Wrestling coverage. Keep it up, good brother Tempest. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. And is there a whole point of moving the division like a soft reset? I'm going to guess that moving the division soft reset. I'm going to guess that he's talking about Shingo Takagi and moving from junior to heavyweight division. I figure it's just, you know, it's the natural progression of things.
I think it's clear that
yeah, go ahead.
It works better because if you take, for example, a move maybe like the Young Bucks, as soon as they were juniors for so long and then suddenly they moved to heavyweight and they were successful, and I almost didn't feel an impact of that. Like, it was almost like, okay, they're moving to heavyweight, oh, they've got this massive push, but really it should have been a massive thing that they've suddenly gone from going against teams like Roppongi 3K to going against like God and things.
Yeah, I mean, it's just allowing more possibilities for different matches, and I think that's one of the things that keeps New Japan really fresh. And one last thing here in the chat that I want to shout out before we move on to the next match. VJ Mohan says, are we getting Tempest versus Nugget at the next Quizzlemania? I don't think it'll be the next Quizzlemania, but I will fight tooth and nail to take that championship from him. You all don't understand. He is absolutely insufferable. Moving right along, because we are here to talk about the G1 Climax, we had Okada and Yujiro Takahashi. Now, I am not a huge fan of Yujiro Takahashi. Like, he's serviceable, but in a tournament like this, not at the same level as many of these other competitors. And I thought this match was fine. He's had fine performances 2 times out. But when your first 2 opponents are Will Ospreay and Kazuchika Okada, and you aren't having like really great matches, I don't know that they're going to happen in this tournament, because there are a few people that will bring that out of you better than Ospreay and Okada.
I mean, I agree that I do like Yujiro. I think like over his time he's had amazing like points, and then it's just sort of faltered. And I thought, Yujiro, you're very lucky that we're in the situation, because there's a lot of people who couldn't make it, and that opened up a spot for him. But I do agree he's having good matches. But for a tournament like the G1, where we're saying there are so many amazing matches, you want him to have that standout match where people at the end will go, oh, who was like your standout performer? What was your standout match? And you want to be able to say, oh, it was Yujiro's. But you sort of don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, so I mean, this match in particular, I thought it ended up okay. And Okada, I don't want to harp on this on every review because I feel like it's going to get old, but I really don't like the Cobra Clutch finish. I
can agree there.
Oh, his matches are so much more dynamic when he's trying to hit the Rainmaker, and you can do counters to get in and out of it. He's not wrestling someone like Tanahashi in this tournament, but like, Rainmaker into Tombstone into Sling Blade, twist and shout, all these different cool counters that you could do. None of that happens when he's trying and fighting to get the Cobra Clutch. I just think it brings his matches down so much.
And I think that's true, but I think maybe it works with Yujiro, if you know what I mean, because Yujiro's never been the most dynamic. And I almost feel like I don't know whether Yujiro would be able to sell that Rainmaker how we all like it to be sold. I think this way it works more to, I think, Yujiro's style. But I agree with you. I really miss the Rainmaker. I think it's just one of those moves that it's historical.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing to me, is I don't think this match in particular will have been impacted by it as much as others that we'll see, because I don't look forward to seeing Okada sit there with Shingo Takagi, locked him up in this move.
It's not going to work.
I would much rather see them battling for that, for control and all that sort of thing. So obviously we can kind of move on from this match. There wasn't a whole lot to it, and Okada was able to pick up his first win with the Cobra Clutch finish. Moving on to what I thought was the most surprising match on the show is Taichi and Minoru Suzuki. I did not expect any of what we got here.
I am a massive, I say this, but I'm a massive Suzuki-gun fan, and this was one of the matches that I was the most looking forward to. But yeah, I think I expected it to be tough, because we've all seen Suzuki-gun in the past when they have to wrestle each other. They don't care about factions. But I did not expect Suzuki to come out and literally, before the bell even rang, like, put his arm around like Taichi's neck. Like, it was actually quite scary.
Yeah, like we have seen, like you said, we have seen different factions go at it in the past, whether it be Bullet Club, LIJ, Chaos, whatever. And Suzuki-gun has cared less about that, but this to me was a step beyond just having normal competition. Like there was some anger there, and we clearly saw some sort of like deep-seated like hatred or resentment or something between the two. And coupled with Taichi eventually getting the win in this match, maybe we'll see some sort of power struggle between the two. And that typically doesn't happen too much in New Japan, but we also don't usually see the leader of a faction lose to someone else in their own faction. I found it very interesting.
I think that is the thing, because it brings up from last year's World Tag League, when Zack pinned Suzuki, and everyone thought that was the moment where we were going to get Sabre-gun, and then obviously this time people like Taichi-gun, and I think out of all the factions, Suzuki-gun, you're always like, there's no one, you think they're out of their mind if they're going to try and battle Suzuki for leadership. And a lot of people think that it isn't, but when I was looking at the post-match comments, I almost didn't see that, because they've always said, like, it's never really mattered in Suzuki-gun who the boss is. I think it's just to them, it's a matter of, like, personal faction pride, like who is the strongest in Suzuki-gun, and from this, Taichi is currently at the top of the ladder.
Yeah. Well, this match in particular, it was much more aggressive, that as we've said, and it started with like, they brawled around ringside, they choked each other with the barricade and with cables and with chairs, all this sort of thing before getting back in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
And Taichi is known as one of the people who, is more heelish, cheats a lot more in his matches, but he basically got the win clean in this one with Black Mephisto.
Mm-hmm.
I am very interested to see where this is going to go. And I am aware that you are more of a Taichi fan than I am, I will say.
Probably more of a Taichi fan than many people.
So I wouldn't say that I went into this tournament caring a great deal about him, more than I did like a year ago. Mm-hmm. But this has given me more of a reason to care about where he goes next and how he does.
And you were saying this by saying like he won quite clean, and it's almost like when Taichi has matches with Ishii, Suzuki is now going to be one of those people who can bring out the best in Taichi. We're not going to see the cheating Taichi. We are going to see the amazing wrestler that obviously had to fight through so much as one of the black sheep of New Japan.
Yeah, absolutely. So a few more from the chat here. People are chiming in with their favorite or least favorite moments. Least favorite moment from True Heel Heat is Naito losing to Okada at Wrestle Kingdom 12. It's very understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Shardul Shankar says Omega and Okada matches, and least favorite when Devitt got kicked out of Bullet Club. Very good answers as well. And then we have friend of the show, Adam Pearson, talking about, I want to get into New Japan Pro Wrestling, but find it a tad intimidating to learn all those new names against the backdrop of a foreign language. Is it easy to learn and get into? My advice for something like this is to find someone that you already know or can connect with, whether that's going back and watching old stuff or watching current stuff, whether it be when AJ Styles came into Bullet Club, and Bullet Club was a pretty good gateway for a lot of people just because it was all foreign stars. But even if it's Kenny Omega now or the Young Bucks or Chris Jericho, I would say find someone that you know and can watch their move set, know already what their matches are kind of like, and use that to watch all of their matches and then get introduced to other people, whether it be Jericho's matches with Naito, and that allows you to get more introduced with Los Ingobernables de Japón or anything like that. And I mean, the foreign language thing, I don't think is as big of a roadblock as it used to be, because now you get English commentary on just about every show. It's a little bit tougher now just because of the delay, because they can't do it live. But Kevin Kelly has been just the best commentator in the business for like 3 or 4 years now. And he will really help you. Him and Chris Charlton and anyone else they have on commentary, they will really help you learn and let you know why things are important. So it can be daunting, but I definitely recommend it.
And I also say on YouTube, there are so many recount videos now. You've got so many historical videos showing like the history of factions and the tournaments. And when I started about 2.5 years ago. And I started, like you said, you pick a wrestler that you like. I watched Wrestle Kingdom because Marty Scurll and Will Ospreay were on it. And I think once you find that you watch their matches, that will open up so many doors, because New Japan has so many huge tag matches. You'll get familiar with the faces, especially within the different factions, and almost it'll take no time at all for it to be like second nature to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree. Abhinav Tiramula is back saying Louis got an upgrade. Darn right. He's talking about you. And then yeah, that just about covers everything from the chat here for right now. True Heel Heat says again, AJ Styles got him into New Japan. Perfect example of that. People like that you already know coming in will help tremendously. Moving on from that to the next match, what I personally thought was the match of the show is Tomohiro Ishii and Will Ospreay. Now, you're not going to find much more of a clash of styles in this tournament than these two guys, but as two of the absolute best wrestlers in the entire world, I don't think that's going to get in their way at all.
I mean, I expected a lot, because like the Taichi Suzuki one, it's an inter-faction one. Ishii, we have seen in the past, tournaments are his thing. He hardly ever wins the whole thing. He's always a bridesmaid, never the bride, but he always puts on standout performances, and this match I definitely think was one of them.
Oh, for absolutely for sure. I mean, through the first 4 days, I would definitely have this in like the top 2 or 3 matches of the tournament so far. I just absolutely loved it. And again, it was really good contrast in styles. Will Ospreay has been much slower since returning, and not much slower to the point where it's like sluggish or anything like that. But it just goes to show that, he is a heavyweight now, and he's put on some extra size, so it has affected his style. And we will have to wait and see if that plays into the story of his matches that same way that now Shingo is undersized compared to some people.
I almost feel like by having this win against Ishii, they've sort of gone in a completely opposite way to Shingo.
Yeah.
Because, yes, like, he lost to Jeff Cobb, that's a big thing. But Ospreay winning against Ishii is basically like Jeff Cobb. They're two very big men with very strong styles. And for the fact that they had Shingo lose to Jeff Cobb, who, I mean, in the grand scale of things, compared to someone like Ishii's a veteran of New Japan. Yet you've got someone like Ospreay beating him. It's almost like they're going a different way with Ospreay. And I think maybe it helps that he has got a heavyweight title on him at the moment with the Rev Pro one, that they can't have him afford to lose as many matches, maybe.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. So Tomohiro Ishii, he's great. In particular, in this match, I want to point out one just unbelievable spot where Will Ospreay was kind of sat on the top rope, and Ishii did a thrusting headbutt into him. And I don't know if Luke Owen had popped into the chat at that point or not, or if he came in right after, but I know Andy Datson and I thought that Ospreay was just about impaled doing this. It was, oh my God, it was incredible. But going from there, the finishing sequences of Will Ospreay's matches are always just top notch, and this was no different. And he managed to pick up the win here with the Stormbreaker,
which is a beautiful move.
It's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So, I mean, if you're going to recommend matches, I mentioned this on Quizzlemania on Wednesday. This is at the top of the list of matches that you really need to go out of your way to see. There's other ones that are in that same kind of vein, but this is top-notch wrestling. And when the star ratings for all this come out later today, I don't doubt it will have a very high rating. Abhinav Tiramula chimes in with a super chat. We appreciate that very much. And says Jay White versus Sanada in the final. Jay White wins the title at Wrestle Kingdom.
So somebody's actually they've just copied my predictions, because when I've been speaking about it for weeks, I have said that I want Jay to win his block, Sanada to win his, and a rematch between those two, because they are two of my favorite wrestlers, and their match last year at the Destruction Tour, I think, was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I mean, everyone is entitled to a prediction, of course. As far as the final match, that to me makes as much sense as anything else. If you told me that Jay White and Sanada were going to be in the G1 final, I would be like, yeah, okay, that makes sense to me. I don't know that Jay wins the title at Wrestle Kingdom, just because New Japan seems to be very much behind having a babyface win in the main event of Wrestle Kingdom. Yeah. It has been, I can't even tell you the last time that a heel won the main event final match.
Not the main event.
And it was kind of funny, last year when we were doing predictions for WrestleTalk and for Wrestle League, for Wrestle Kingdom 14, I stupidly put, Jay White's going to win the whole thing and be double champion. And as soon as I said that and submitted my answers, I was like, well, no, he's not. He's a heel. Yeah. Why did I say that? And as soon as I did that, I was like, no, Naito is clearly going to win. But we'll see. And I think that's partially, again, the reason why Omega didn't win at Wrestle Kingdom when he faced Okada that one year, that sort of thing. They really like their kind of face of the company baby faces to come out on top in the final match. Jamie Levin says Ospreay versus Ospreay versus White will be glorious. Cannot wait. That's going to be another good one. I love the A block this year. It's just phenomenal. But we should get to the main event of day 3 as well, which was the rematch of last year's G1 Climax final and a rematch of a Wrestle Kingdom 14 match is Kota Ibushi and Jay White.
So for me, I think that was my match so far. Like, I loved their match in the G1. Their Wrestle Kingdom match was amazing on the final night. And this one, I think, was just, I say it's like a condensed version of that Wrestle Kingdom match. It's from the minute, like, they both came out, it was amazing. There was storytelling, there was amazing wrestling. It just was the perfect combination of what professional wrestling should be.
I agree, because I think these two perfectly encapsulate a heel versus babyface style in New Japan that we don't see very often. There are definitely, like, there are exceptions to that rule, but Jay White is just about the ultimate heel in New Japan, and Kota Ibushi is just about the ultimate babyface.
Yeah.
And seeing them go against each other, I thought totally made the G1 Climax final last year that just an unbelievable match, one of the absolute best matches of the year. And I definitely feel like the main event matches of A Block so far have been the condensed versions of some other great matches.
Yeah.
I felt the same way with the Ibushi versus Okada match from the first night. And we'll see what that's like going forward, because I know we're getting some other like Wrestle Kingdom rematch type deals, in the weeks to come. But this match, to me, one of the very most interesting things, I've noticed this for a while, and everyone talks about Kota Ibushi having that dark side, and when it comes out, oh, you got to be careful or whatever. I don't know that I've ever seen him win a match when that happens. And I think that's a very important distinction, because you look all the way back to like Wrestle Kingdom 9 against Shinsuke Nakamura, like that was what many people consider like the first time it really came out, at least in front of the New Japan fans. And he lost. And then it didn't really come out again until he faced Tanahashi at Power Struggle in 2016. And he lost again. And we didn't see it much in the G1 last year.
No, not all right.
And then we saw it on back-to-back nights at Wrestle Kingdom this year, and he lost both times. So it's almost like when he lets this side of him out, you lose his control to the point that he can no longer focus and get the win. I just find that so interesting, and I wonder if that's intentional on his part. And I mean, this guy's a wrestling genius, so I have no doubt that it would be.
I think that is true, because I think for some reason, for a portion of this match, I thought Ibushi was going to win, because obviously Jay was targeting Ibushi's leg from the very beginning, and I thought, right, when Ibushi clicks into this mad place, this is going to be what carries him through. But yeah, it seems that when he gets into this zone, he can't control it. And it's then that's who makes mistakes. And that's what happened in the end. He got distracted by Goto, went for the Kamigoye, and then Jay, as he always manages to do, he manages to transition into his Blade Runner. And I think that's something that is not intentional on Ibushi's side, but it's something that maybe he almost needs to step back and have a look and go, right, it might help me for like 5 minutes of the match, but in the long run, this new side, this crazy side to him, doesn't benefit him in the matches.
Yeah, and again, we saw that here. We saw that here. These two have very good chemistry, and that has been shown in their like 3 matches so far. But at the same time, Jay White picks up his win with the Blade Runner. Now, this is a stark contrast to last year's start, where he went like 0-3 to start the tournament and then won out. He is off to a very hot start.
And he likes to remind everyone in the post-match comments. He's like, yep, 2 for 2 now. And I think, I almost don't know if this is going to be Jay's downfall. That is good, because we saw it last year with the likes of Kenta on a hot streak. And even with Moxley, they were both on a hot streak in their blocks. And I think they got maybe 3 or 4 matches in, and they just went on losing streaks.
Yeah, because I remember, I didn't think that Moxley was going to win, but I love John Moxley very much and want to see him do well. And that was a deal where I think like one of the last matches that he won in the G1 was against like either Naito or Jay White or something like that. Actually, it wasn't Jay White, because Jay White beat him. But he beat Naito, and I was like, oh my God, he's going to win the whole thing. Like, they totally worked me. And then, of course, he lost out for I think it was the last 4 matches of the tournament he lost. But Gato's a genius when it comes to booking these things. I totally have faith in him that we have no idea what's coming, and you shouldn't read too much into these first few nights.
Because they can easily change within even next week and the next week's matches. We could literally see a change in the board.
Oh yeah. I mean, this sort of thing, one big swing on any given night, and the whole table is basically reset, and you don't know who has momentum, who's gonna be, who's up, who's down, any of that. So that brings our coverage of night 3 of the G1 Climax to a close. Just before we head into night 4 with the B block, we've got some chats to read out quickly. Broken Scythe says, out of topic, do you think when the pandemic is over, will Miro go to New Japan Pro Wrestling, and will he join the G1? Yes to both. I think that Miro would do excellently in a faction like Suzuki-gun. He's very big and mean and tough, just fits totally, and they've kind of been lacking that figure since Lance Archer left earlier this year, since Takashi Iizuka retired last year. Mm-hmm. They just don't seem to have or even since Davey Boy Smith Jr. Left the year before, they don't have that big mean bruiser of in their faction, and I think he would fit that role just excellently. Beyond that, we've got you struggle. This is a super chat as well. You struggle with my name, just call me Brindwar or Brindrar. I can't even speak or read, so that's my apology. If it's easier, I feel like Ospreay will beat Jay White, but will lose to Ibushi to create a 1-1-1 score. Well, that would need a tie if we're getting real specific with things. But yeah, I mean, I would not be surprised at all if someone like Ospreay beats Jay White and loses to Ibushi, or if any of those guys, any combination of wins and losses there, I would absolutely remember, or I would absolutely not be surprised by any of that.
I almost think if Ospreay did beat Jay, it would be because Jay is so cocky that he's going to beat Ospreay, because he's been saying all sorts about Ospreay in post-match comments, that he turns his back for a second and then Ospreay obviously uses his speed and gets the win, whether it's a roll-up or a quick, into the Stormbreaker. So I think that could actually happen.
Yeah. And then last one here is Abhinav Tiramula, or Tiramala. I can't speak. I apologize very much. Abhinav Tiramala says, what are you guys' thoughts on Jay White? He's my favorite wrestler in New Japan, mainly because I'm a sucker for a great heel. And honestly, if Jay cuts out the interference a bit, I think he'll be next up. I agree. I think he does a little bit too much interference, but that kind of goes for most top heels in New Japan. But why don't you take the lead on this one? You are a very big fan of Jay White, as we know.
Well, one of the first big feuds that I started watching in New Japan was actually David Finlay versus Jay White, and that's what got me hooked on it. And I think I sort of agree in the sense that maybe Jay has quite a lot of interference that he doesn't need. But yeah, I've seen so many tweets, especially I think in the lead up to Wrestle Kingdom, people saying Jay White can't wrestle. He doesn't win in the right way. And I think if you're saying you don't like him and he doesn't win in the right way, he's doing his job right. He doesn't care. He doesn't want people to cheer for him. That is not his aim. And I think that is why people like him. They like that he's not trying to make you like him. He's not making you boo him. He just exudes something that does it. And I know I'm sort of saying that's kind of hypocritical because I like him, but he, on top of being an amazing character, he's an amazing wrestler, and he wrestles the right style. There are so many times nowadays where you see heels doing flips and things, and I think Jay White, obviously he's always been a heel even in Chaos, but since moving to Bullet Club, he's really adapted that style, and you don't get that enough nowadays.
Absolutely. I mean, totally agree. Everything you said, hit the nail right on the head. So for the B block, I have a lot of trouble with the B block this year, just because in the A block, I'd say the only person in the A block that I don't care about is Yujiro. Everyone else, at least on some level, I care about.
Yeah.
Whether it be I really want to see Taichi get his or whatever. Everybody else in that block is just phenomenal. The B block, I don't feel the same way. there are so many people in the B block where I'm just like, I don't care. Like, even
See, I'm quite surprised. Like, I think obviously A block for me has got more of my favorite wrestlers, but when I saw B block, I was like, this is gonna. For me, I thought B block is gonna produce some of the best matches because they have got some of the most versatile wrestlers in it, and I think, yeah, as much as I hate to admit, I think B block overall is probably my favorite block.
Wow, interesting. I mean, I don't feel the same way personally, but I mean, everyone's entitled to their opinion. My problem with it more so is like I'm much more invested with a lot of the characters on the A block side. Like right now, I just don't care about like what Goto is doing. Like I know he's a great wrestler, but I don't have a reason to care.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with like Yoshi-Hashi. I know he captured his first title earlier this summer, but like he just Yoshi-Hashi's never done it for me. And then you've got like, Yano's the comedy guy, and I don't know. It's just tough for me. There are people in the block that I do like for sure, and I do enjoy watching their matches. But I don't know. I've found it difficult. So let's go through these a little bit. The first match of the night for night 4 was Goto and Sanada. Now Sanada last year had a very slow start and ultimately like sewered his whole tournament before it even really began. His only real big moment came when he beat Okada in the near 30-minute classic. That was his moment of the G1. And again, it's early. It's only 2 nights in, but I kind of want to see Sanada getting the wins, especially like when you look at the night 2 loss to Yano. That didn't really, Louis Dangoor said it in the Monday review. It didn't feel like he was being presented as a star in the loss. Like Moxley last year to me felt like more of a star coming out of his loss to Yano than Sanada did here. And they were very similar. And now Sanada has lost again to Hiroki Goto. So
I think, because I love Sanada and I love Goto as well, I think Sanada's actually been impacted more by the loss by Goto because he might not have looked maybe as good as Moxley did against Yano, but because of the names Yano has beaten in the past, it's almost like you expect Yano to have beaten Sanada, whereas Goto, I'm a massive Goto fan, but he is one of those wrestlers that it's a bit like people don't really feel anything towards him. And I almost feel like that is what has probably impacted Sanada more, that he's been defeated by someone who doesn't have the same limelight on him. So, for example, like Sanada and LIJ, they're so charismatic. Whereas you've got someone like Goto being him, who he's a talented wrestler, but if you put a room of New Japan fans together, hardly any of them would put Goto in their top 5.
Yeah, I mean, he is a world-class wrestler, and that needs to be stated. Like, obviously, he's fantastic. He's a great wrestler, but he's always been missing that kind of that fire, that charisma that you really need to be like a real top star, in New Japan. He doesn't have that. So it means that if you have someone in the match with him that might be above him, like an Okada, a Tanahashi, a Naito, a Jay White, something like that, they end up having like these really good heated matches because they kind of bring it out of him a little bit more just by being there and by association. But I don't think it works necessarily when you have him wrestle people that are supposedly on the same level as far as like the card goes.
Yeah.
If you have people wrestling on the same level, I don't really think a whole lot of people benefit from that. And you look at this match, it was okay. Like I said, I'm not super into Goto this year. There was a lot of finisher stealing, which is interesting, helps set the match apart. And then Sanada, of course, is off to another very slow start as he lost to Goto using the GTR. So again, it's very early. Jay White lost his first like 3 matches last year and then won out. So there's definitely different things they can do. I wouldn't look too far into it, but I would like to see him portrayed a little bit stronger.
I've got to say, in that match, I did like it when I thought Sanada was going for a TKO and went for a Ushigoroshi instead.
Mm-hmm.
I did quite like that. That was very different. And the only other times I've seen Sanada stealing moves is when he's had matches with Evil in the past. So I quite liked seeing this. It was very different for Sanada.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, that to me was a very nice moment. And like I said, it was a good match. It's not like it wasn't. I just having a hard time getting invested in Goto matches right now. Moving on from there, we had another quick match as it was Yano and Tanahashi. And it's all about your taste in this one. I mean, it's Yano comedy. You kind of know what you're going to get. It was a little bit different this time as he did some actual wrestling before and after the comedy. And he doesn't do it very often, so it's still special when Yano does do actual wrestling. It kind of makes, well, people can't really cheer or boo or anything like that, but hearing the people when Yano does wrestling go, whoa, you know, because they're not used to it, you know, it makes his matches a little bit different. But I gotta be honest, I'm not super thrilled that Tana lost this match. You know, Toru Yano, especially blinded and all that sort of thing. Like this one to me hurts Tanahashi. Like obviously it's Tanahashi, he'll be fine. But at the same time, like, come on now. You're telling me that a blind Toru Yano is going to out wrestle and like roll up Hiroshi Tanahashi and pin him? That one to me was a little hard to believe.
That one, I think anything with Yano really is a matter of taste. I personally love it when Yano beats some of the top names. Like last year when he beat JY, I thought it was amazing. When he beat Moxley, when he beat Naito last year. So I personally really liked Tanahashi's match with Yano because I think to start with, I was worried that we might get similar Yano matches in the sense that he'll use the tape, he'll wrap it around a wrestler and a young lion to get the count out. So the fact that we've seen this, it almost makes me hopeful that we're going to see so many more variations of what Yano can do with tape, what sneaky style he can do. And also, I think it's a nice break within the G1 matches because there is something that you can watch and you'll go, it might not have the best wrestling, but it is going to make everyone smile.
Yeah. And that to me is the most that's the most important distinction to me. Is his matches definitely have a place in the G1 because they're different, and it makes you always know that whatever you're going to see from Yano, it's going to be different. It's not going to be like a 5-star amazing classic match from like Tanahashi and Okada or whatever. You know what you're going to get out of Yano, but at the same time, it's still unpredictable enough that you don't know if he's going to get that upside win or what. But at the same time, there are definitely Yano matches that I like more than others, and that maybe that's just me. Like, I like it when he does his comedy and then ends up losing, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, they're my favorite Yano matches over the last few years were like when he faced Sanada, I want to say 2 years ago, and it was
and he got tied in the barricade with the tape.
Yes,
that was a classic.
It was like a 2-minute match, and to me, I sat there because I never want my favorite stars to look stupid, right? If you can outsmart the goofball, then you know you're the smart wrestler. But when the goofball outsmarts you, I'm just like, oh, come on, you know. It's like when you get like the lowest grade in the class, below even the kid that like never studies and all that sort of thing. Like, again, it has its place, but this one to me was a bit much. And we kind of talked about the whole match there because it wasn't very long. So we can kind of move on to the next one. There's a lot of discourse going on in the chat, but I'll just leave that there. Then we had Juice Robinson and Kenta. Now,
this was the shock of the night for me, I think.
Yes. I don't know if I said it on a stream or if I just wrote it in our kind of predictions article on WrestleTalk.com, but I gave Juice a really hard time before the tournament because I said, like, Juice Robinson, this guy was like, it looked like he had the rocket strapped to his back in 2018 when he won the IWGP United States title from Jay White, and then he had a really bad G1 that year. He only got like 2 or 3 wins, something like that. Like, didn't have a good performance. Lost the title to Cody in his first defense, won it back, never really had like a big title defense, then lost it to Moxley and had another subpar or like middle of the road G1 last year. Lost the title again to Lance Archer.
And then he had the tag titles, which they lost on the first defense. Yeah.
Exactly. So I've been waiting for this like big coming out moment for Juice Robinson, and it just never happened. But now at least we have back-to-back wins for Juice Robinson in the G1. And like, okay, I will watch Juice Robinson's matches and I will be completely interested in what they're doing right now because I like Juice. I think he's very charismatic, cuts great promos. If you saw either of his promos after his two matches, so far, they've just been fantastic. But I mean, his next test was with Tanahashi in his next match. But this, to me, again, like you said, was a shock because you can beat Yoshi-Hashi and it's one thing, but if you
That's
beat
the
Kenta,
thing. You almost think you expected Juice to be Yoshi-Hashi, but Kenta, I know I had it when on the New Japan site you can do the predictions. I was easy to go, well, Kenta's winning that match because Kenta is Kenta, and like you said, Juice hasn't really picked up much momentum since 2018 after his US title reign. So I think it was a nice surprise, and I'm really happy for Juice because he deserved it.
I completely agree. The biggest thing for me in the B block so far is the people that I really am invested in and want to see well have been losing so far. Sanada has lost 2 in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Tanahashi's lost 2 in a row. And those are like my two really big guys.
Yeah.
I really like, Zack Sabre Jr. and Tetsuya Naito and guys like that as well. But it's important to me to kind of see like the guys that I'm really invested in getting wins, and I feel like they're doing well. And to me, Juice getting these 2 wins, I'm like, okay, yeah, there's someone I can get behind, in this tournament. And we'll see. I'm interested to see what his goals are because it made it look at the end of the match like he's still very interested in going after Kenta's title shot. He has unfinished business, I guess, with Jon Moxley and the U.S. title. But again, you never know what's going to happen. Like the pandemic has thrown everything out of whack. Maybe they do a match for the briefcase at Power Struggle when this tournament is over. You never know. But it definitely looks like there's at least something there.
Yeah.
And of course, Juice did get the win in this one with Pulp Friction.
Which is you know what? When I first saw it, I wasn't a fan, but I actually really like Pulp Friction. Like, it's a very simple move, but it is very effective.
Yeah, I said in a recent, I think it was a Quizlemania, they asked, like, what's a finish that you don't see enough of and you want to see more of? And I said, like, the Unprettier or the Pulp Fiction, and they kind of gave me a hard time about it. So, nuts to you, Adam Blampier, and anyone else that may have looked down their nose. Moving on from there, I thought this next match was much better than I expected it to be. And it's Evil and Yoshi-Hashi. And again, kind of hard to get into Yoshi-Hashi right now as a performer. Like, you kind of know what you're getting with Yoshi-Hashi. He's very middle of the road. I think he's got a very low ceiling. But he had a really good match here with Evil, and to the point that I thought he might pick up a win near the end.
I was so happy with the start of the match. So if anyone didn't see it, he basically ran out. When he saw a chair, he got his stick that he comes inside, beating Evil up and making sure that Dicto goes out of the way. And for someone like me, like, I love Yoshi-Hashi at the moment. I think he's the people's wrestler. And after his loss to Evil during the New Japan Cup, I think it was, where he was literally squashed within no time at all. The way he came at it was actually the perfect match for Yoshi-Hashi because I think it elevated him as a wrestler in terms of in the people's eyes. But obviously, even though he didn't win, it was the right result and it happened in the right way. So Evil wasn't disregarded as a wrestler, and neither was Yoshi-Hashi. And I think it's sort of the people who maybe don't like Yoshi-Hashi, New Japan is slowly letting them have seeds of his greatness. Not so much as he's like, oh my God, he's as good as Tanahashi or Okada, but maybe more like, I could actually maybe get behind this guy.
Mm-hmm. To me, the distinction between guys like Yoshi-Hashi, because you always need like an underdog character in wrestling, and he's definitely one of those. But for the longest time, the difference to me was you have someone like Yoshi-Hashi, someone like Juice Robinson, maybe someone like Tomohiro Ishii, who are all still kind of fitting that mold of an underdog. The difference to me was I never got the feeling that Yoshi-Hashi would actually pull it off and win. I felt like on any given night, Tomohiro Ishii and Juice Robinson could get those next big wins, but I just didn't feel like Yoshi-Hashi had that same like spark. I didn't feel like he could pull it off. Maybe we'll see something else out of him, especially in this tournament. Maybe he'll get some really big wins. Because, I mean, you look down the list of the B block, and it's like, well, I don't think he's just going to lose out and get no wins. So clearly he's going to have to beat somebody. And it'll be interesting to see who that is.
It'll be interesting to see whether he gets another upset like he did a few years ago where he debuted Karma and beat Kenny Omega. Could it be something like that again, maybe?
Entirely possible at this point. I mean, we don't have that Kenny Omega type figure, but I mean, have him beat, like, I don't know, Tanahashi, or, there isn't that as many like absolute top main event level guys in the B block as there are in the A block. It's kind of limited to Tanahashi and to Naito, unless you consider, people like Goto and Evil on that same list. And he just lost to Evil, so you can't even do that one. So
that's one. I think Tanahashi, a win against Tanahashi would probably be the next best thing, because I can't see him beating Naito at all. But I think, especially with how Tanahashi is at the moment, he's not been on the best of roles with like his talent, obviously when he was Golden Star. So I think Tanahashi would probably be the not the safest option, but the most realistic option at the moment.
Yeah, you never know. Well, we're gonna have to see. I mean, there's still a long tournament left ahead of us. And then right before we get to the main event, Walu TV, which is the mayor of Painesville, Dan, I see you, Dan, says, when will the masked mystery stable with funny names attack everyone in the tournament, though? Never. People always feel the need to bring up retribution when I'm talking about New Japan. This is my safe space. Don't ruin it for me. And Jamie Lavin said, didn't WWE change the Unprettier to be the name of Edge's Impaler DDT? The Impaler DDT was the Edgecution. The Unprettier was Christian's move, which he then changed to the Kill Switch. That's just me being the fact checker that I am. Moving on from there, we have he says, your safe mace. Boo, bad joke. Let me live. Moving on, we have the main event. Tetsuya Naito and Zack Sabre Jr. Now, these two have very good chemistry together. They always have. Zack has always seemed to kind of get the upper hand over Naito, especially in G1s and stuff like that. But that didn't happen this time. And honestly, I find it like it's such cognitive dissonance. I'm so not used to seeing Tetsuya Naito pushed this heavily, Like, obviously, he's been a top guy and everything, and he's gotten tons of wins. But even through his his title reigns, he hasn't won that much. And this is his latest title reign, and he started the tournament off 2-0. And it's just like, I'm not used to seeing him being the guy standing tall at the end of shows night after night after night. Not complaining about it. I just think it's very interesting.
I think this match was one that I saw and I thought Zack might actually win, because year after year, Zack has said, he's like, I don't really care if I win the tournament. I just want to beat the IWGP champion. And I almost had in the back of my mind that I wanted Zack to win. And he, from the start, it almost seemed like he was, because for most of it, he dictated the pace of the match. We saw Naito having to stick to a more grounded game. And I think the moment it went wrong was when Naito was in a split second and Naito quickened the speed. And it was quite interesting. I don't know if you saw what we were seeing out of Zack Sabre Jr. We saw like a tornado DDT and almost a Frankenstein out of Zack. And I think that was his downfall, by trying to adapt to Naito's style instead of making the pace fit his style, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, this match is a very good example of like a contrast of styles, but with guys working to each other's style. Zack Sabre Jr. is in a class of his own when it comes to technical wrestling, and he can have the great technical matches, but it's when you see him having to resort to other things that you get that excellent kind of storytelling especially in a match like this, where, like you said, he pulled off just an incredible tornado DDT coming out of the corner. You get these kind of things, and it just absolutely helps elevate his matches and being just adding another dimension upon another dimension to his already really good work as a technical wrestler. You know, it makes it a more well-rounded story. It seems like it would make him a more well-rounded wrestler if this was real, just being able to adapt and that sort of thing. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. And like we said, you know, already, this match almost went the full half hour. You know, I think it went like 28 minutes and 28 seconds or something like that.
Yeah,
it was very close to running out the time.
They were. You could hear Abe on the mic counting down, like getting more loud and louder as like the minutes pass.
Oh yeah, and it's interesting. I don't know how many matches. You know, I've kind of said this already in other reviews and everything. I don't know how many matches we're going to see this year that will go to the time limit, if any. Honestly, like if I was going to pick a few, it would be like Ibushi and Okada, maybe Ibushi and Jay White, matches that we've seen already go beyond the time limit in the past.
I think Sanada and Naito might. Just because it is a match that people have been waiting so long for, especially now. And we've obviously seen Sanada go very close to the time limit before, so I feel that one might also be another one that could reach that 30-minute time limit.
That makes as much sense as anything else to me, honestly. At this point, like my two guesses would have been the two first, you know, A block main events, and neither of those have happened yet. So at this point, anything is as good a guess as I'm willing to make right now.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Naito got the win in this one with like a pair of Destinos, really. I think he hit 3 in the whole match, but ends up 2-0. Undefeated so far, cuts his promo after, and that brings that show to a close. Now that basically brings the review portion of this show to a close as well. I mean, the G1 has just been fantastic so far. You know, it's the G1. You know it's going to be, but even if you had any doubts because of the pandemic, they have just absolutely blown away my expectations, my lofty expectations. And oh my goodness gracious, the show on Sunday, I think honestly could be the best card of the whole tournament. And we will be doing live reactions here on Wrestle2 for that one. I believe Louis Dangoor will be joining me, the new Quizzlemania champion. Hopefully I can knock him down a peg a little bit in that stream. But I mean, on that show, you've got Shingo Takagi and Will Ospreay in a Best of the Super Junior rematch. You've got Okada and Jay White. It's going to be absolutely phenomenal.
That is actually one of the matches, I think, for some reason, like I've seen it so many times now, but when I see Jay White versus Okada, the matches just are something completely different. Like, I think out of anyone in New Japan, those two have one of the best chemistries in the ring.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen it in the past already. Like, it speaks for itself, honestly. Like, all of these matches are just going to be absolutely phenomenal. And you keep going down the card, and it keeps getting better and better because you got, you know, Suzuki is still in there. Taichi and Yujiro Takahashi are going to wrestle in the opener, and then basically everything after that, I'm just like, oh my goodness, could be match of the year. So we'll have to wait and see. Make sure you check back with us here on Wrestle2 for all of our live coverage of the G1 Climax. These reviews will continue to take place on Fridays as we kind of cap off the week that was in the G1. I know we did one on Monday, but now we're going to be doing them on Fridays exclusively, and it might be a little bit more difficult to get through everything as we will have more than just 2 shows next time to talk about. But hey, that pretty much brings us to a close. We are just under an hour, and I think that's a pretty good place to stop it. So if you'd like to plug your Twitter, your YouTube channel, anything you would like, please, now is the time.
So you can follow me on Twitter at wrestling_chat. And my blog and links or stuff will be on there, but my YouTube is Sonal's Life. I am trying to post every week at the moment. With G1, it's about a matter of when rather than if. And yeah, make sure you give me a follow, like my Facebook page. All the links will be in the comments box. And yeah, I live tweet as well during each New Japan show when I'm not at work. So make sure you follow me. And I'm quite funny, some people have told me so.
Excellent. Absolutely excellent. So thank you guys very much for joining us. You know, As always, make sure you follow WrestleTalk on Twitter at WrestleTalk_TV. Follow us on Instagram at WrestleTalk.official. You can follow me on Twitter at TempestWT, and we will see you next time.